his day will come where he gets an opportunity to come back into the team, but when that is exactly, we don't know. But in the interim, I'd say to Ezra, look, watch how this combination's working and see what you can learn from it.
Well, hello and welcome to Queenslander, our first episode of 2025 this season, proudly brought to you by the Tab. We'll have a special tip of the round coming up from Lockie and Wal, brought to you also by the Tab, so stay tuned for that one. But before we kick things off, first of all, boys, the Cyclone. How did you fare in that one, Wal?
Yeah, it wasn't something I was keen to be all that close to. Obviously, your concerns are about other people, your relatives, your kids. See how it went, but it was all okay. Certainly, my place didn't get too much damage at all. What
about you, Lockie?
Prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I think, in my case, we had a good outcome. Some others didn't, but it was probably, when it was bearing down on us, it felt like it was going to be a long few days and a lot of damage. And I think most got out of it, in a good way. But there's obviously other people that didn't. I know my mother-in-law, she lost power for 4 days, and that wasn't fun.
Yeah, I know.
I've lost power for 7 days in the last floods.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure everyone's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Our thoughts with everyone still recovering across southeast Queensland. I was actually on the Sunshine Coast as part of the 9 News coverage. Not a lot happened there, just a little bit of rain. I ran into Billy Moore, the Queensland Origin legend. So he runs a restaurant up there at Mooloolaba. It was supposed to be their busiest weekend of the year with the Mooloolaba Triathlon. Unfortunately, it had to close. He was obviously very respectful of everyone, but it reopened on Saturday. He showed us around the kitchen there. So he said, shout out to Billy Moore. If you're up at Orgello's on Sunshine Coast, going and see Billy Moore. He's just so passionate about Origin. Like, it was round one of the season and all he wanted to do was talk footy.
Would have been a few Queenslanders.
Yeah.
Would have got a few of those then, quite a considerable number. But, mate, well done on the sunny coast. I know I sent you a message congratulating you on your... It must be tough to be standing there in the middle of the cyclone, being able to bring out the information to the people. It's certainly very impressive.
Yeah, I think what helped me growing up in North Queensland, a lot of cyclones there back in the day. But, yeah, as I said, our thoughts are with everyone still recovering across southeast Queensland. But moving on to the footy, the Broncos, talking about taking the competition by storm, Lockie. How impressive were they in round one against the Chooks?
Yeah, some good signs there. I mean, it's only one game, but the signs were there in the trial, so it's a good start for the Broncos. But, I think that the important part now is that they just keep their feet on the ground and know that, they're playing a team in Canberra this week that played very well in round one themselves. So, but what we saw against the Roosters, who are, obviously in a rebuilding phase, there was a lot of things to like.
Yeah, they certainly showed that they can do it. I thought it was a very impressive performance, and if you're going to impress the coach, do it from the very first game of the season. I think that he would have been super happy with what he got to see.
And 6 and 7, new combination, first time we saw it, Hunt and Reynolds. Why do you think that'll work well together this season, Lockie?
I just think their experience.
Yeah.
I think there's a mutual respect there, given their age, given what they've done in their game. So they understand what the team needs from each individual, and they're prepared to do that. So I thought it was very measured from both of them the other night, and they combined and complemented each other.
Led by example. I thought it was a wonderful performance from them, and if there is a tough challenge ahead, it's backing that up. I'm certain the coach will be expecting that's what they'll do next time around, and it must be very encouraging for the players, though, teammates, to have seen what they can rely upon.
And no Ezra Mam in the 6th jersey, at least until round 10. What about the scenario, Lockie, if this continues to bode well, the Hunt-Reynolds combination? Could you see a situation, say they've won 8 out of their first 10 games, Ezra's going to have to work really hard to get that jersey back? Like, does he not walk straight back into the team?
Oh, I think it's a premature conversation. Like, you got 8 weeks. Well, how long before Ezra's allowed to?
Yeah, I think it's round 10. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So you got a long way to go, and a lot can happen between now and then with the current combination. I think.
Could it be a good thing if that happens?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, Ezra's obviously, he's he's been working hard to rehabilitate himself physically and mentally, and he's doing that. He's doing a good job, and his day will come where he gets an opportunity to come back into the team, but when that is exactly, we don't know. But in the interim, I'd say to Ezra, look, watch how this combination's working and see what you can learn from it.
Yeah, the big boys that have shown it right from game one prove that experience is a wonderful thing. Certainly the players, you could just see the way that they relied upon those two, and certainly were out to produce their best.
Yeah, and I think because he can't play Queensland Cup even, Ezra, until that suspension's finished. So regardless, you think he's going to have at least 2 or 3 weeks in Queensland Cup. You can't go straight back into the NRL having not played for, 8 months?
Well, it depends on a couple of things. The situation in the first grade team, and then also his physical, and if the coach has got confidence in him playing NRL straight away. I mean, there's a few players who we might come across later, but there's a few players that played for the Dolphins the other night and played for a long time, So, I just think you make that call once you get closer to it.
And what about one call that Michael Maguire did make early on, shifting Pat Carrigan to the front row? We've seen him play there at Test level and Origin level. What did you make of that? Seemed to be a really strong 1-2 punch with Payne Haas.
Yeah, fantastic. It really did reap plenty of experience. It just showed that these were the guys that led the way, and I thought they were 2 wonderful performances from the guys that certainly made those around them feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
And Kobe Hetherington kind of complements it in that middle because he's a different type of player, Lockie.
Well, he's a work ethic player. He brings a lot of aggression in his defence. Pat's role, even though his jersey number changes, it doesn't change too much. He's still taking hit-ups. He's still using the football. He's still going to the line with players' emotion around him. So it's just, I think for Pat, getting that mindset of being the first one to take that tough hit up is probably the only thing that changes in his game.
Yeah, I thought his leadership was fantastic, Lockie. A wonderful performance from him.
Yeah. Another change to the forward pack too. Cory Paix was the starting dummy half. How do you think he has earned that spot, Lockie? What do you think he did to convince Maguire he's the 9?
Attitude.
Yeah.
Look, that's not a knock on the other hookers in the club. I just think, Cory has been on, he's been on the outer a little bit there for a while, but he's hung in there and persisted and sort of, I guess, tried to find a way to fight his way back into the team, and he's done that through showing, in my opinion, good attitude, and he's been rewarded for that. So it's great for Cory, but it's also the other positive for the team is the competition for the hooker spot.
Yeah, Cory was out to show his worth. I thought it was a wonderful performance, obviously, out there to remind the coach of his worth. He certainly played a very impressive game.
I think that was a big mistake they made last year, not giving him a game. I know there's extenuating circumstances there, but he was the Queensland Cup Hooker of the Year. You talk about how it's all about attitude, Lockie, but to not give him a game all season long, I think if Kevy looks back at that, maybe that was a mistake he made. And plus also you've got so many hookers in that squad. That's an area the Broncos need to clean up. I know Tyson Smoothie's moving on, but obviously something to look at. You can't have that many hookers in the squad.
No. But Cory said he wasn't getting game time, but he was willing to hang in there and fight his way back, and he's done that. So it's a credit to Cory. And, look, I think everything's easier to sort of look in hindsight and say, well, I could have done things differently. But at the end of the day, hooker's a key part of a team, and for Cory to earn his spot back in the starting team, well, that's fantastic. But Billy's still got a role, a significant role to play there.
I don't mind him on the bench too because of the versatility he adds, and he has a bit of the spark out of the dummy half. So that could be a new lease of life for Billy.
In the trials, he was very effective in the halves.
Yeah.
Really. So, I think and to Billy's credit, he's gone back to the bench, but he's been very positive about that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, could be good to have a backup half on the bench too when you've got the 2 oldest halves since
Don't
Desi
bring age
Hasler.
into it, mate.
Yeah. Was it Desi Hasler and Cliffy Lyons back in the day for Manly? But just finally on the Broncos before we move on, while Raiders down there in Canberra, Lockie touched on it earlier. This is a bit of a trap danger game. They love the ambush down there, Ricky.
Oh, yeah, and it's happened with almost monotonous regularity previously. I remember the days, you can even go back to the days when it was the Ricky Stewart, Mal Meninga causing drama for the Broncos whenever they visited town. I'm sure that this team won't be underestimated from the weekend, though, the Raiders. The Broncos know that they have to be at their best to achieve success, particularly in the national capital, and I think that we will see a very big effort from the Brisbane Broncos.
I got beat at the nation's capital 56-0 one day in a Broncos jersey.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's happening, but they're very good down there, the Raiders, and I reckon they'd get a lot of confidence out of the way they played round one in Vegas.
Yeah, I got thrashed down there too, Lockie. Thankfully, I can't remember what the score was, and I don't want to remember what the score was, but it was the days of Mel Meninga, Laurie Daly, Ricky Stewart, and they flogged us, absolutely hammered us, and we walked away from the place, and it was particularly painful. Wayne Bennett, being the coach, a former Canberra coach himself, tended to feel the pain a little bit more than the rest of the players. So, but they always do seem to save their best for the Broncos in Canberra.
Yeah. I guess if you want to play the Raiders in Canberra too, Lockie, March is the time to do it instead of the middle of winter.
Yeah. 100%. They used to turn the heaters off and the hot water off in the away dressing rooms down there.
Well, a difficult assignment there for the Broncos on Saturday night, that game against the Raiders. The team that's been affected the most by this cyclone has been the Dolphins. Just phenomenal what they've had to deal with. So round one, they were supposed to play at Suncorp Stadium. That game, of course, was shifted to Sydney against the Rabbitohs. They tried to fly out Friday night. They couldn't do that. They went to the airport, 7 a.m. flight Saturday morning. They got told there wasn't enough air traffic control staff in Brisbane, so they had to go back to the hotel. They came back at midday. They finally got another flight. They couldn't land in Brisbane. They had to stay with me. They had to go to Toowoomba. Then they eventually caught a bus from Toowoomba to Redcliffe and ended up there 6:30 Saturday night. So how does that affect your preparation?
Well, look, I think it helps you become more adaptable to certain situations, and they had to adapt to it. You know, it was moving all the time, where the game was being played, what the weather was doing. So, I think it from bringing a group together, it's probably only going to bond them more by going through that process together. Obviously, some of the players stayed behind, and that that has an impact on not just families but the players. Psychologically, that they've decided to go down that path and not go and play for their team, but you can't blame them for doing that. So there's the last 7 days and probably the next 3 or 4 days has been a bit of chaos for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes chaos is a good learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a perfect line, Lockie. It makes them play a lot better than what they probably could have, and they become much more determined to achieve success. So it may offer them an opportunity, but boy, I think you'd rather take it the easy way out than that.
Yeah, so they came back Saturday night. As I said, a lot of them didn't know if they had power outages at their house or flooding damage. They haven't been able to train at their grounds because it was flooded and the power was out until Tuesday morning. So they left Monday night to go to Newcastle. They finally got a training session in there and they'll play the Knights on Thursday night. But I think the NRL owes them a bit of a debt of gratitude of like how much they've had to go through. Almost hard to draw an example, but like what the Warriors did at the start of the COVID, sort of kind of, it's almost derailed the first fortnight of the season. But as you said, Lockie, if they get a win against the Knights on Thursday night, this can really galvanise them into a few home games.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough game down there. But look, I can sort of, even though they lost the other night, Christian Wolf, you can see they're going to play with a tough mindset. They're going to be resilient. So this will be good for what they're going through off the field at the moment will be good for them in the long run. They just need to get through this week and hope everything settles down off the field. But if they can get a win, well, even better.
What did you like about that Rabbitohs game? They were very unlucky not to win that one, Wal.
Yeah, they were. I thought they stuck to their guns fairly well. I think that they probably proved to themselves that there are going to be plenty of difficult times come along throughout the course of the season. The players, though, I think that they probably had a real go. I guess the the opportunity to be able to call for one of those games throughout the course of the season always proves the good from the great players in every club, and you get the leaders that really stand up. And I thought that was one of those opportunities that just escaped by a little bit.
If you go back and watch that game, there's a pivotal moment, I think with about 15 minutes to go, Lockie. Yeah. They're up by 2. They've got the scrum about 35 metres out. And they tried to do this set play, and it was a hurried pass to Sean O'Sullivan. He knocks on, they turn the ball over. The Rabbitohs instantly get momentum and end up winning the game. You guys, 2 of the best halves of all time. What are you thinking? 15 minutes to go, you're up by 2, you get a scrum 35 metres out.
Well, look, 2's not enough with 15 minutes to go. So you're probably thinking build pressure.
Yep.
So you're not thinking score tries. You're thinking if I haven't scored by play 5, I'm looking for a repeat set.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
And maybe that's not what they were thinking at the time. And it goes to, what Wal was just saying, a little bit of inexperience there. Probably they panicked at the wrong time.
Yep.
But I would also say they needed points at the back end of the game when they got behind, and I felt the omission of Cody Nikorima, where he's got those points in him, but they probably missed him at the death.
Yeah, and he's definitely back in this week. Nikorima and Mark Nichols missed that first game, but they do miss Kilikefu Finifuiaki, who's out with the HA, and Connolly Lemuelu, who suffered a fractured cheekbone, adding to their problems. So he couldn't fly back. You know, the dramas I was just saying. So he had to get in a car with their footy manager, Grant Clear, and they had to drive back to Redcliffe. But because of all the flooding, they couldn't come up the coastline. They had to go almost via Tamworth, the inland route, and then they came back. But the ironic part of that is they drove up by car and they beat the team who flew up.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But, I think, Wal, you had another point on, like, the halves, like building pressure late in the game. Yeah,
building pressure and certainly not getting too carried away too soon. Pressure, we've seen it, over the years by the talented players, and we giving you a pat on the back here, Lockie, when you knew that there were times in the game that scoring points is always a wonderful thing, the best knockout punch for the opposition, but sometimes it's not the best thing that you can possibly come up with, and that's simply to retain the pressure on the opposition and make sure that whenever they're getting it, they have one thing on their mind, and that's trying to get to the other end of the field and post points, where that could be a dangerous situation for them. They're taking too many risks too soon.
Yeah, well summed up. A lot of that comes back onto the young shoulders of Isaiah Katoa. Our mate Joey Johns reckons he's future New South Wales halfback, almost behind Cleary once Cleary finishes up in Origin, which however long that is. But Katoa is still really young. Do you see him as a future Origin player? Have you seen enough of his poison presence, Lockie?
Yeah, well, he's a game manager and his kicking game is very good. Like in terms of winning field position, he's got a great mindset with his kicking game. And I felt like he's learning a lot quicker than any other young halves because he's never really had an experienced half to go with him, right? He's sort of carrying the team on his own at a very young age.
Yeah.
And I think only as time goes on, the short-term pain will be long-term gain for him and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's shown patience, wonderful patience so far, and that's not always there in spades for the younger players in the team. And I think it's been very good for him to be able to display that and give himself even more confidence than he had this time last year.
Yeah, so it was a big win for the Broncos, a narrow loss for the Dolphins, and a big loss for my Cowboys, Lockie. How bad were they against DCE's Manly Sea Eagles?
Well, I guess to probably soften the blow on the Cows, but Manly were
real good.
They were good, and they were ever since they've done that renovation at Brookvale. It's a pretty hostile environment. Yeah, it was always hostile. I remember we played there, and Terry Hill used to just give it to us, with his mouth and his footwork at Brookvale. So that's, but that stadium now, like when they've got it packed and they get going, it's not an easy ground to play well at, and the Cowboys felt that very early. My analysis of the Cowboys, they lost Val Holmes, they lost your man.
Felty,
They lost Felty.
Even Chad Townsend's experience,
But the back line is a much different combination, but they didn't. There's not so much in attack. They missed the combinations in defence.
Yeah.
Out wide, they just looked disjointed, and Manly scored too many tries out wide, too many breaks. So they got some work to do. I'm sure they can fix it, but it doesn't get any easier for them this week.
I know one bloke that loved it was Fatty Vaughton. To see that the way that the boys are performing well, and thought that was one of the better performances on Brookvale Oval, and he seems to think that that the Manly Warringah boys are displaying some real teamwork, where for quite a long period of time they used to take too many chances, the Sea Eagles, and he pats them on the back these days and just says that they show that patience and they think more about winning than having their name in the paper the next day.
Yeah. The thoughts go out to Fat, in retirement out on the golf course. I'm not sure how many games he watched on the weekend. I hope you're hitting him well, Fat.
You should imagine he won't be showing that same patience on the golf course, though. goes well. For a bloke that could not play golf at all in the old Origin days, could not play golf, he's an absolute expert with the club these days.
I reckon good chance he's off to the Masters this year. Not to play, but he'll be there.
Yeah.
He actually hosted the Gold Coast Titans season launch the other week, so he's still a bit busy, in
busy, his favourite word. Busy,
in retirement, Fatty. But I know what you mean about the defensive structure there, Lockie. So if you go back in a lot of the tries the Cowboys conceded, that left edge, so you've got Jeremiah Nene defending there next to Tom Dearden, who's a good defender but still a small body. And then you've got Jackson Purdue, who's still very skinny and is filling that Val Holmes position. So if you watch, I think 4 of the tries were conceded there. So that'll take a long time to get the combination right.
Yeah, look, I think defence is about trust, and trust comes up with time spent with your teammate, right?
Yeah.
So that'll take time to build, but they were very much not trusting each other the other night against Manly. And look, that's probably... Manly were very good. They were up for it. So they made the defence make poor decisions. But if they don't fix that part of their game, then they're going to keep leaking points.
Yeah, and Todd Payton round 1 went with Dearden with Tom Duffy in the halfback jersey instead of Jake Clifford. Jake Clifford was part of their finals campaign last year. What did you make of that, And do you think, is it one they persist with for a month or so before looking at tinkering?
Yeah, it might surprise, but yeah, I do think that they'll hang it with that plan for a little while. I don't think it's time to panic, although there will be a fair bit of disappointment there in not being able to achieve success with that pairing. If that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it was broke on this occasion, and it really was one of the poorer performances. And I don't think the coach will take too long to make his mind up there.
Yeah, I got a soft spot for Tom Duffy. He went to the same high school I went to in Townsville, but...
Is he take over the Felty?
Someone in the crowd at Suncorp Stadium in, what was the Pacific Test? Tonga played the Kangaroos. Someone yelled out to me in the crowd and said, "What are you going to do next season?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, Corey Oates has retired and Felty's gone to English Super League, so I need 2 new favourite players, so I'm on the hunt.
Working on it.
Yeah, that's it. So it'll give me maybe the first few rounds and I'll sort one out. But moving along now to our tab segment of the week, which is the tip of the round, just to see what you guys have gone for. I'm going to go for the West Tigers to beat the Eels. The West Tigers were unlucky not to beat the Knights in round 1, so I'm going Benji's Tigers to beat the Eels, who were dreadful. And good to see the Tigers gave a debut to Tristan Hope last week, who was a Queensland Cup premiership winner with the Brisbane Tigers a couple of years ago. And great to see that pathway continuing. So, what is your tab tip of the round?
I'll stick with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're displaying some fairly impressive strength. I like the way that they appear to be quite strong as a team and working together as a group, and I think that could be an opportunity for them to regain even more confidence to make themselves a little bit unbeatable.
There we go.
Dolphins to have a win.
Yeah.
Castle. Get a reward for their effort. That's my sort of unexpected sort of tip. I think the Dolphins, with some of their players coming back, I know they lose a couple.
Yeah.
But I feel like they they've earned the right to get something good happen to them.
Yeah, definitely. After so much bad luck.
And I think they've got plenty of people on side too, Lockie, Queenslanders, that they mightn't be Dolphins supporters, but they're very hopeful that we're going to see better performance from the Finns.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Yeah, and another team that's been affected by the Cyclone, the Titans, we haven't seen them in action so far this season. So they had that round 1 bye, but because their centre is completely flooded at Parkwood, they've had to relocate to Sydney. As opposed to the Dolphins, Lockie, the Dolphins are only gone 2 days before the game against the Knights. They're in camp for 6 days in Sydney. How beneficial do you think that could be to have that mini camp, given they haven't played a game yet?
I think being together away from home is a good thing for team unity and team bonding. So, given that they need to, at the same time, need to work hard with their preparation so that they're ready to go on game day, but they're up against a really good opposition in a really hostile environment. We saw what Manly did with Cowboys. Well, the Bulldogs at Belmore, Bulldogs are on the up. That's a tough game.
I think the coach might remember exactly the reasons that he wants to win this game. To be able to return to Brookie. It'll be a tough game though. The Sea Eagles, I can't see them being very easy at all. But
they're actually playing the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We got confused with the Cowboys playing the Sea Eagles last time. Yeah, Titans against the Bulldogs. Well, technically another one of Desi's former clubs, given he coached them as well.
Yeah. So you're right.
We'll go back into one of his formers. He always seems to take that determination, that will to win against the old teams. I don't think this will change.
Where do you guys rank Belmore? You touched on Brookvale, Belmore, the Raiders' home ground, Bruce Stadium, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so when you guys played, the 3 most intimidating venues, I'm putting you on the spot this one, we didn't prep this. 3 grounds you really didn't like playing against. You'd rock up and you go, oh no, not this week.
I reckon my third ever game playing for the Broncos, I played 5'8". I was up against Terry Lamb in 1995.
At Belmore?
At Belmore. Walked down the tunnel at half time, got spat on.
Oh, that'll do it for you. Okay.
So, it's hostile. That's an understatement.
The best way to describe it. Where was the ground you hated playing at? Well,
Belmore. Did not like playing there at all. Did not like it one bit. Shark Park was the one that...
it always rains at Shark Park for some reason, all the time.
I used to cop an absolute spray at Shark Park. The Sharkies were pretty much one of the best teams in the competition in that one. And as one of the blokes said to me, I bet today you found out more about your wife, your girlfriend or your mother than anybody could ever inform you. And I thought, well, thanks very much for that very nice piece of information. And the other one was Illawarra. I did not enjoy playing at Illawarra at all. It was just one of those very rare grounds that I got the chance to play on.
Yeah. So I'd put Belmore, I'd put Brookvale in there.
Yeah.
Campbelltown was never much fun.
Yeah.
But I'd probably put Leichhardt. I only ever, I reckon, played one game at Leichhardt. That was hostile too.
Yeah.
So those 3 smaller suburban areas, it brings out passion, and it was always hard to win at those grounds.
And you feel like the crowd's almost like on top of you.
And you can hear every word they say to you.
Nice, great stuff to see more games at those smaller venues. But more on the Titans too. Well, they've mixed up their halves again. This has been the conundrum for them the past couple of years. So it looks as though moving forward, Jaden Campbell at halfback and AJ Brimson at 6. What do you make of that? Because Foran's out for at least 8 weeks with the did his pec in the trials. It's hard, hey?
Yeah, it is. It is, and an injury of that seriousness certainly can't come back too soon.
Yeah,
that's going to be extremely difficult. But Desi Hasler, I admire this guy. Watched what he does. He can be seen as being one of the quietest people in the rugby league game. But Desi, when he wants the message known by his players, he certainly will get to them as much as he possibly can, and he will make sure that by the time they go out there in the field, they're going to be feeling that they owe the coach something serious as well as their supporters.
You talk about Kieran here.
Oh, well, what do you think of that halves combo?
Yeah.
How do you make Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson work? Because it's a weird combination. Attacking-wise, it could be amazing, but structure-wise, who knows?
You never underestimate Des. Is it the crazy professor or the nutty professor?
Yeah,
it's one of those. Yeah. But I think he'll have a mindset where he'll be telling his players that we're going to get ambushed here. You know, it's going to be hostile. They're going to come out and get into us, and he'll have ways to try and counter that. But yeah, I agree. I guess you've got some really. If you look at the 1-6-7, so dynamic.
Yeah.
As runners. But who organises them?
That's it.
That'll be the interesting part. So what it says to me is that the game plan will be very unpredictable. It could be a lot of offloads, but there won't be a lot of structure to it.
Yep. A lot of questions to answer for the Gold Coast Titans this season, and a bit of homework for me to do. I'll come up with my 2 new favourite players now that Felty and Oatsy have gone.
I reckon give you 4 weeks and you've got to come up with 2.
Yeah, okay.
One.
Yeah. Pappenhausen is legitimately one of my favourite players, and how good was he on the weekend again? So he's definitely in the top 3, but there's 2 other spots available.
You've got to pick Queenslanders, eh?
Yeah, I know. That's why it's hard with Pappenhausen, because he's so good to watch, but the other 2 will definitely have to be Queenslanders, or I'll get kicked off this show, especially by while they'll take me out of the car park.
He's hard to dislike, though, isn't he?
Yeah. He's just full of beans, just jumping around.
He's fun to watch.
And because he's surrounded by so many Queenslanders, and like Munster, Xavier Coates, who was also awesome, and Harry Grant. So it almost feels like he's a Queenslander.
He's not a Queenslander.
Yeah, okay. There we go. And also, how am I supposed to wrap this up? Oh, live and free Thursday night. Big game for the Dolphins on Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, as Walt keeps laughing there. Kalen Ponga's Knights up against Christian Wolf's Dolphins. Live and free on 9.